Chapter 324, A Music Box Only for You, 3. 4. I love you, Gongja. Please go out with me. I can't do that. Damn it. The first thing I did after becoming the Constellation's follower was to reject the Constellation's confession. A music box only for you becomes enraged. Thump. Thump. The young fox stamped on the floor with its paws, puffing angrily. For those who have never seen it, a fox playing like a mouse is incredibly cute. Which means, my constellation is cute. So, I'm not cute to you? No. You are cute. I'm not lovely to you? You are lovely. So, you like this form I've taken, and moreover, Gongja, you want to make me happy with all your heart, without any brainwashing or manipulation involved, right? Your words just now are correct. Then that's love. The fox leaped up and grabbed me by the collar. Shake, shake. For those who have never experienced it, a fox hanging from a person's collar and whining is extremely cute. You get what I mean, right? Love me now. Love me right this moment. Give me the utmost happiness, human. Make me happy. I wish you could understand what I mean. A music box only for you activates its skill. Universal Sovereign attempts to change your emotions. Failure. Skill conditions not met. It won't work, you know. God. Universal Sovereign fulfills each other's fantasies. What I'm imagining is the happiness of the constellation, and as long as that happiness is not a delusion but something I genuinely wish to be grounded in reality, no distortion will occur. In short, I wished for the fox god to be happy in reality even without the Universal Sovereign. Until the end of our realities, until complete death arrives, therefore, the Universal Sovereign will also continue. The fox clasped its head with both hands. It's strange. The strange one is Gongja, but it feels like I'm being treated like a childish and strange constellation. Isn't it strange? If this isn't love, then what is love? What is it? You're still in your youth until you can ask that question. Have I been in my youth for thousands of years already? Damn. Spring is too long. I'll suffocate on pollen before summer even arrives. God. Your speech has become a bit rough. Though you're cute enough to punch the cheeks of the universe's cuties a few times over, but don't you think there's something a little off about the way you speak? Isn't there something more fox-like? A bit more fox-like in how you speak? Follower. Then do you know how a fox cries? Ming ding ding ding? That's outdated. And you got the rhythm wrong too. The young fox said coldly. Foxes can make expressions, too. Today, too, I, Kim Gongja, have gained a new enlightenment as the only Socrates who is climbing the tower. Indeed. Bei Hurayong suddenly sighed. The density of bullshit around Kim Zombie has thickened even more. What does that mean? Shiny tries to join the conversation, asking what that means. A music box only for you deeply contemplates the sound of a fox's cry. Really, where did he find and gather these 36 flavored crazies? Is this even legal? Zombie, is your existence legal? To my eyes, it seems like it needs to be illegal. The small 5 Pyong, about 165 square feet, room was bustling. In that place, there were 1 person, 1 sword, 1 desert fox, and 1 ghost. It was the most perfectly racially equal four-member party combination in history. There's no need to stay here any longer. First off, it's cramped. Peep. Peep. And the fox god answered. It seemed that it had finally decided on what the cry of a young desert fox should sound like. In my opinion, it was evolutionarily off the mark and probably physiologically incorrect as well. But the fox god seemed very pleased. Peep, piak. What did you say? Piak. I could immediately understand what the fox god was saying. A music box only for you is the constellation that rules over the 61st floor. A music box only for you assigns you a quest. Before my eyes, grains of sand moved. The granules gathered to form letters. Plus. Feeding quest. Constellation, a music box only for you. Difficulty, F. Mission objective, stroke the head of the constellation you serve. However, you must stroke with all your sincerity. Plus. Peep. The fox god raised its chin confidently and proudly. Yes. Understood. I smiled and stroked the fox god's head. Following the path of my hand, the platinum fur rustled softly. With all my sincerity. Quest achieved. Stage clear. Perhaps, there's no hunter who has completed a quest faster than this. If this is a speedrun, then it's a speedrun. Not counting the half-lives I had to spend as Raviel and my master. Congratulations. You have cleared the 61st floor stage. And now, I was enveloped in a scene different from before. Swoosh. A sandstorm blew. It wasn't choking to breathe in, nor did it sting the eyes. It merely carried the sweet scent of desert roses. The delicate fragrance of flowers that bloomed, drinking only the dew under the sun, wafted to my nose. It's not a dazzling light. Up until now, every time I headed to the next stage, I was surrounded by white light. Maybe it's because I became a follower to the constellation. I smiled. Now a constellation who cannot use any power and has nothing else to do but be by my side, but perhaps the constellations in the night sky are originally like that. The wish I had for the constellation was already enough for me. If I could smell the scent of roses with every floor I climbed. It's nice. I drowned in the sandstorm. You will be transferred to the next stage. Tick. Listening to the sound of the wall clock left in the small room for the last time. 5. You have entered the 62nd stage. A new floor. Although in reality, I had only stayed on the 61st floor for about a week, the noise announcing my arrival was loud. The eye living in the labyrinth redetects your presence. The constellations must have been continuously tracking me. It's me who made such a spectacle on the 50th floor. Even if temporarily, I had made contracts with up to 10 constellations. Whether it was constellations I had contracted with or those I hadn't, it was difficult for them not to take an interest in my tumultuous journey. The eye living in the labyrinth notifies other constellations of your arrival. That was when my presence on the 61st floor was cut off. Due to the universal sovereign activated by the fox god, we were completely isolated, trapped in a world just for the two of us. Even the other constellations were unaware of the fox god's existence. Nor could they understand its power. Perhaps the constellations were clueless about what had happened and were just stomping their feet in frustration? And now, as if nothing had happened, I've returned, hence the flurry of messages coming in. The eye living in the labyrinth proposes you become its official follower. The warhorse of the eternal plains offers you a follower position. The lone seeker of truth offers you a follower position. The incarnation of love and lust proposes you the position of apostle. It's been a while. Names I missed appeared one after another in the messages. I gave a bright smile to the unseen constellations. Have you all been well? The eye living in the labyrinth asks where you have been hiding all this time. I wasn't exactly hiding. The details are private, so let's keep it a secret. The incarnation of love and lust is offering you the position of apostle.
Ah.
Right. About that. Plop. The fox god jumped onto my waist and climbed up to my back. I've already become a follower of a constellation. The fox god curled up on my shoulder. And then, it softly wrapped its tail around my neck. From a distance, it might look like I was wearing a golden scarf. Peep. The fox god rubbed its head against my cheek. The Death King is a follower of the constellation, a music box only for you. A music box only for you politely requests other constellations not to mess with you. A deep silence enveloped the heavens. The lone seeker of truth remained silent. The warhorse of the eternal plains remained silent. The incarnation of love and lust remained silent. Only the sound of the fox god fluttering its tail with a smile flowed quietly. After a while, finally, one constellation sent a message. The eye living in the labyrinth politely asks where you've got this stray dog from. Such a good first impression. Now, everyone. Let's calm down a bit. A music box only for you answers out of context that it really likes snake liquor. Snake liquor? Why suddenly snake liquor? Beihurayang answered my question. The eye living in the labyrinth, that is, Hishmith Kritz, is a snake god. Zombie. In short, your constellation was using a racist insult against snakes.
Ah.
So. The eye living in the labyrinth swears to kill you. So that's why it's reacting so violently. Indeed. It seems our fox god is intent on making enemies of the other constellations from the start, ensuring they don't mess with me in any way. The incarnation of love and lust says it has never heard of a constellation like yours. A music box only for you responds that it's because your rabbit ears are rotten. It expresses sympathy for you, saying you don't have anyone to regularly clean your ears. The incarnation of love and lust swears to tear you apart. Remarkable. By any chance, Babbitt is a rabbit god. As far as I know, it takes pride in its ears being the loveliest in the universe. It laughs off insults to its parents and personal attacks, but for some reason, it goes ballistic if you insult its ears. I see. To put it in more understandable terms? Beihurayang seriously pondered. It's like someone insulted Raviel to you? What? That's the end of it. Are you planning to destroy the world, Fox God? The warhorse of the Eternal Plains suggests everyone calm down as they are all too excited. A music box only for you worries looking at your long face might make its own face elongate. The warhorse of the Eternal Plains prepares for war. This is serious. The number of forces hostile to us is growing at an alarming rate. I had no choice but to show the person who insulted Raviel the torments of living hell. If words were necessary, they would come only after delivering a hellish pain first. The constellations would probably do the same. How am I supposed to correct this misunderstanding and confusion? No. A constellation who manipulates the world for their own enjoyment is your god's temperament. What's there to misunderstand or mistake? Did you really think they would respect other beings? They probably consider all life in this universe as insignificant as ants, except for you. I ignored Beihurayang's words. They're not helpful for my mental health. Let's focus on conquering the stage for now, God. Peep. Wow. What could the 62nd floor be like? Is it dominated by a force like a magic tower? I'm curious. So curious I could go mad. Really mad with curiosity. I'm just going crazy here. I desperately tried to divert the fox god's attention. There must be a constellation governing this stage too, right? I wonder who it is. It would be nice if this time it's someone normal and kind. I'm really curious. No need to be curious. A voice was heard. And you don't need to know. At that moment, the ground shook. The reason for the shaking was something had plummeted from the sky. Precisely, in front of me. Even more precisely, where my head would have been if I hadn't used lightness skill to evade. Kuong. I quickly created distance between us. The place I had just escaped from was smashed to pieces again. Kwang. Kwang. As I swiftly moved, like swatting a fly with a swatter 3 or 4 times, searching for a bug, lightning-like strikes followed me. Seems you're worthy of being called a king. After 18 combined attacks, taking up about 2 seconds in time, the one who attacked me finally spoke. Death King. You're the one who killed my apostle. It wasn't a human. Though it looked human, it had gigantic tusks like horns on both sides of its forehead. Golden eyes, devoid of emotion, were fixed on me. That arrogance. Pay for it with your death. Creak. The constellation was shouldering a hammer, magnificent and seemingly too large. The ox that harvests ruins attacks you. The ox that harvests ruins. The ox that harvests ruins swears to obliterate you. In the past, Sylvia Evanale. The very constellation that the Lady of the Golden Silk revered as a god. Chapter 325, God and King 1. 1. The ox that harvests ruins is Musha. So, the blonde priest boy had once said. The heretic questioner stroked his chin. The main areas it governs are destruction and recreation. Simple but powerful. At this time, the heretic questioner was wearing a flowing dress. It was the period when he was impersonating the Lady of the Golden Silk. Therefore, not only did the heretic questioner stroke his chin, but he also flicked open a fan and waved it, though such a description would probably be irrelevant. A sanctuary, in short, reinterprets the world and brainwashes people. The grand library we were in just before is the same. The librarian interprets the world as a collection of stories, and there we are forced to become characters in the story. Thus, those who have their own set of rules. We defeat them with the rules we can use. The heretic questioner smiled broadly. I define this as a holy war and a star war. ED, from chapter 113. 2. Koom. A storm that lightly swept the surroundings struck. It was a single blow. Rocks turned into rubble, gravel into a sandstorm, and with just one strike, the surrounding area was scorched. Slippery as an eel, you are. The ground cracked in a checkerboard pattern. The lines of the grid creaked and misaligned. Kwang. Kuong. Each time, the ox that harvests ruins swung its hammer, the misalignment intensified, and finally, the terrain was damaged beyond recognition of its original form. Try to avoid it forever, Death King. Geok. You're not the first to try to run from me. There was one who exchanged blows with me until the moon waxed and waned 31 times. If you're planning to ask what became of him, it would be better to ask directly by yourself. The ground flipped over. As, the moment your skull shatters, you will face your predecessor. The terrain surged and the earth was in chaos. Geok. The ground was torn apart. From there, long-accumulated sedimentary layers were stripped away. Musha was not just showing off its strength. Peep. The moment Fox loudly warned, the ground collapsed. Centered around where Musha and I faced off, the entire ground of this area sank. I tried to avoid it, but Kuong. Musha swung its hammer and blocked me. I had to choose whether to avoid the collapsing ground or the hammer flying at my head. It wasn't a difficult choice. Kuong. Bang, roll. As a result, I took the risk of the ground collapsing. The altitude at which the two of us were fighting and exchanging blows became lower and lower, and every time the constellation slammed the ground with its hammer, the speed of the collapse accelerated. Indeed. Before long, our battlefield had turned into a Colosseum. If there was a difference from the Colosseum built in Rome, it was that it did not consider the audience at all. Where the stands should have been, there were only steeply rising sedimentary rocks. Not just swinging a hammer at me, but changing the terrain to make it hard to run away. The Colosseum was an artificially created hell on earth. A place for living humans to watch and enjoy the bloodshed and massacre unfolding there. A gladiator arena without stands is then nothing more than a mere living hell. That's right, young lad. The one who had created a hell pit in a matter of minutes gripped the hammer again. Living as long as I have, one gets tired of achieving just one thing at a time. Achieving at least 2 goals simultaneously is not so much a virtue for us as it is a habit. If it's at least 2, that means it could actually be 3 or even 4. You're a quick-witted lad. The ox that harvests ruins. Musha looked up at the sky with golden hair flowing down and golden eyes. The ox that harvests ruins issues a quest to its followers. You have been designated as the target of the quest. The quest is revealed. I, too, raised my head following the constellation. Plus. Annihilate your enemy. Difficulty, SS. Mission objective, you have killed my follower. You have killed an apostle. You severed the voice of a child I had taken in and cut off their lifeline. Is there any reason I should not wring your neck now? Die. Compensate with your death. I've heard you have caught the eye of many constellations. There will be constellations who will steal and read this proclamation by any means necessary. To such beings, I say, do not interfere in this vendetta unless you are prepared to fight with me, Musha, for eternity. It is simple and clear, I wish for your death. However, you cannot participate in this quest. You are the target objective of the quest. Plus. The moment the letters were engraved in the air. Attack. Shadows appeared behind those characters. As many people as the letters, no, perhaps even more, from the opposite side of the Colosseum. From atop the high sedimentary rock formations, they leaped towards me all at once. An apostle of the ox that harvests ruins manifests. Each and every one of them. An apostle of the ox that harvests ruins manifests. All were like the lady of the golden silk. An apostle of the ox that harvests ruins manifests. An apostle of the ox that harvests ruins manifests. An apostle of the ox that harvests ruins manifests. They were apostles. Is this your third trick? Yes. They are the children who want to avenge the death of their fellow disciple. Not bad. Because she's the lady of the golden silk, and a fellow disciple, hence the name Golden Silk. The lady of the golden silk in Hangul aka Korean language is, where means, disciple of the same teacher, thus validating Musha's earlier comment about doing multiple things at one time. Didn't I say? At this age, one aims for 2 birds with 1 stone. It's nothing to marvel at. I gripped the hilt of my sword tightly. About 200. The apostles of the ox that harvests ruins, Musha, all wielded giant hammers. Should I say their hair was also uniform? They all looked similar. Whether short or long, their hair varied in length but spanned from transparent platinum to dark golden, all fluttering golden locks. Gold sprinkled across the galaxy. I marveled at the scene unfolding above me. A meteor shower of gold was pouring down. The word Star War, once mentioned by the heretic questioner, suddenly crossed my mind. Ho! Another voice also brushed my mind. You seem quite leisurely. It was Musha's telepathy. Reciting a poem with death looming over you. If I have 200 apostles following me, they are sharper than the 10,000 soldiers Mahos commands. Death King. Are you so leisurely because, like me, you've prepared several tricks? Well. The 200 apostles who jumped down were now right in front of me. I drew up my aura. With just one sword, I can swing in 2, 3, 4, 5 directions. Is there really a need to bother with additional schemes? Clash. You arrogant fool. Screech. The first to swing a hammer and collide with me was a petite warrior. She too was a chi manifester. An aura user. Dressed in traditional clothing decorated with plum blossoms, her short bangs were neatly arranged, but her elegance and tidiness did not hide the warrior's rage. How dare you wag your tongue in front of Lord Musha? I could speak using only telepathy without wagging my tongue. Shall I? I'll smash your head in. That would be problematic. Hush. Another apostle aimed for my side and swooped in, swinging a hammer. It was a combined attack. Thud. I stepped on the ground and rotated in midair like a half-moon. Then, with a kick, I struck the fingers of the short-haired warrior. TCH. Damn it. The hammer barely missed my back, grazing past. The short-haired warrior was pushed back by my kick. The two apostles clicked their tongues and cursed. Their first combined attack had failed. Shiny. Shiny responds, yes, hero. The first two who took the lead must have been the most skilled in martial arts. I estimated the average skill level of the apostles. Let's open the true names for the first time in a while. Goddess of Protection manifests the power of 5 swords. Swoosh. Apart from the sword I was holding, 4 swords rose from the shadows. Shadow swords. Like thick blueberry jam, the shadows clung darkly to the swords as they began to circle around me. Salvation sword receives the command of the Death King. Sacrifice sword receives the command of the Death King. Prayer sword receives the command of the Death King. Compassion sword receives your command. There. The holy swords that turned Kim Yul, an ordinary student, into the progenitor of the Ejim Empire. Let's see you withstand this. I immediately swung all 5 swords at once without any delay. Be careful. The short-haired apostle shouted. That bastard is immune to the indestructible body, blessing. We feel pain if we're cut too. Be careful not to get ...
Ah.
If it were that easy, you fellow disciple wouldn't have lost. Screams echoed. Right? In midair, 5 paths of sword dance unfolded noisily.
Ugh.
Gasp.
Ah. Ah.
The apostles who were charging at me, those still jumping down from above, and those who were trying to press me from the front. They each grabbed their throats or clutched at their chests, screaming. Gyu. The short-haired apostle glared at me with furious eyes. Even that warrior was holding her throat. Pain without wounds. The second power of the holy sword, namely the compassion sword, had stabbed the apostle's throat. Kook.
Ugh.
She must be tasting the pain of having her throat pierced by now. It's impressive she can still look up at me without losing consciousness. Koong. Kuong. Around me, apostles cut by my sword were fainting from the excessive pain. The hammers they dropped from their hands fell to the ground with a heavy sound. The second most foolish thing in this world is ganging up on me, and slightly more foolish than that is doing so with a weapon like a hammer. How many can you move at once with those coffin-sized hammers? 3, at most? Kill you. How terrifying. I cut the short-haired apostle's head with the compassion sword. An invisible wound, no, pain pierced right through the middle of the apostle's throat. The apostle collapsed as if her string had been cut. I won't inflict unnecessary pain on those who don't come at me anymore. Not piercing your eyeballs or tearing apart your organs is my consideration for you. However, I don't know how long my patience will last. The apostles hesitated and looked back at their God. Musha, holding the hammer, looked at me expressionlessly. You're capable enough to threaten the magic tower. The lady of the golden silk is still alive. I attempted to negotiate. It's true I cut down Sylvia. But now, Sylvia has joined my family and is working as the chief servant of the Death King family. Her life is probably happier now than when she was with you. At least, it would be more comfortable. Declaring vengeance on me is misdirected. Yes. Some constellations might think that way. Musha nodded. Have you ever thought about what it's like to be a god? I blinked. Excuse me? Your humans always pray for wishes. Make me rich. Make me healthy. I fulfill those wishes in exchange for your faith. SSSK. As Musha spoke, the apostles one by one stepped back and reorganized their formation around me. The god is buying time while his followers regroup. I clearly saw through the trick but didn't stop it. This too was part of the negotiation. In exchange for tolerating this, Musha, the constellation, a god, willingly engages in dialogue with me. But what if I twist your wishes and fulfill them? Twisted? I fulfill the wish. However, for those who wish to be rich, I bestow a sense of satisfaction that one feels rich without earning more money. For those who wish for health, I grant a personality that is fully satisfied with the body they currently have. To be content with oneself now, to be happy, I give them a different personality, a different nature. I ask you, child who claims to be a king. The golden constellation spoke. Is that also fulfilling their wish? There are constellations who think so. Many. But I am different. If all that's needed is a lesson to live content with the present, why pray to a god at all? I only cherish those who wish upon me in the moment of their desire. Indeed. I freed Sylvia from the shackles of hatred and vengeance. That was neither a wish made to you nor to me. I guided Sylvia, who had dedicated her life to the thought of killing, towards another life. That wasn't the life she wished for. Now, Sylvia would wish for her current life too. You must have brainwashed her. Is Sylvia's own will not important? The desire at the moment of making a wish to me is more important. I saved Sylvia. To me, that is the death of that child. How can a person changing be considered death? Correct? But that's the logic of your human world, not an excuse that a god should resort to. Musha raised the hammer. It was precisely the same timing as when the apostles had finished regrouping. 1 exception leads to 10, 10 exceptions lead to 100 habits, and 100 habits solidify into one life. Death King. There are no exceptions in the life of a god. That child prayed to me for a wish, and I accepted it. That's all. I will take back the soul of that child you have taken in. I ask you, is there room for negotiation here? Is that so? There is none. We have no choice but to fight. At that moment. Peep. The fox responded to my will. You are a follower of a music box only for you. A music box only for you assigns you a quest. Proof that I, who belong to nowhere, now stand under the constellation of Fox. It wasn't a common quest issued by the tower, nor a quest ordered by the constellation in charge of the stage, but a quest exclusively woven for me by my own constellation. Plus, the Golden God. Constellation, a music box only for you. Difficulty, S. Mission objective, defeat the ox that harvests ruins, Musha, the ruler of the 62nd floor. Musha is targeting a member of your family. However, if Sylvia Evanale's allegiance is transferred to Musha, or if your allegiance is transferred, you will be defeated. Plus, the objective was simple and clear. Thus, I swung my sword without hesitation. Musha, too, without a moment's hesitation, brought down the hammer. Koom! The divine will of a constellation and my conviction collided. Chapter 326, God and King, 2. My sword shadow and Musha's hammer wind intertwined. The apostles did not just stand by as the two of us frolicked. Where do you think you're going? How dare you? Think we'd just leave you be? Heretic King! Having fully prepared their stance, the apostles charged in one by one. What lurked in their eyes was neither madness nor blind faith alone. Their loyalty to the God they believe in. The rectitude of wanting to repay the blessings bestowed by their God burned fiercely in the eyes of the apostles. Remarkable! I exclaimed. But, I've already warned you. And with admiration, I swung my sword. 5 blades bit into their targets like the fangs of a black snake. Left eye. Right eye. Vocal cords. Nape of the neck. The 5 viscera and the 6 entrails. Wherever my sword passed, terrible screams followed in its wake. Places that are unbearable and beyond human tolerance to endure, those were precisely the parts, pain without wounds, gouged out.
Ah!
And it didn't stop there. I remembered the parts of the apostles I had inflicted pain upon. And every time they gritted their teeth, held back their groans, and charged again, I precisely struck the same spots. I pierced through the pierced spots, and I slashed the slashed spots again. Hayuk. Dash dot. Screams. Screams. And more screams. As Musha and I engaged in a give-and-take battle, screams flowed chaotically around us. You fight with such terrifying efficiency. Musha commented. It was an assessment filled with sarcasm. I decided to return the sarcasm. It's not as efficient as being mobbed. People who insist on non-killing are surprisingly many. However, your method of combat, while not killing, inflicts pain worse than death. Perhaps the very path you take in climbing the tower is such. It's touching how you think of humans. I would have been more moved if that tenderness reached the guests at the wedding attacked by the Lady of the Golden Silk. Those were not my followers. Is that it? What? I've seen your first, second, and third strategies. Chung. I parried Musha's strike. Is it over? I charged in. Even if you are considered a shining constellation in the Milky Way, that brilliance does not stem from martial prowess. Musha attacked, and I dodged it smoothly. Even if your apostles boast of martial might, it's all thanks to indestructible body. They are nothing more than those who rush in, trusting in their indestructible bodies. Therefore, they cannot stand as my opponents who can inflict pain on anyone. I swung the 5 swords all at once. Sword wind. The swords became a black storm, devastating the area. Musha, Nim. The apostles let out short screams and were flung far away. Kwang! Dozens were thrown against the Colosseum's walls, the sedimentary rocks. I am merely the head of a combat organization that has strived for thousands of years to embody martial prowess in the sword. There were apostles who were pushed by the sword pressure but did not fly away. They gritted their teeth and endured. Eek! Some pounded the ground with their hammers, using that force to withstand. Impressive! Especially for them, I swiftly thrust 4 swords, one for each. My master has once sliced the peak of a snowy mountain with a single stroke of her sword, my son and disciple has conquered the continent with just his body, my daughter and advisor split the earth with a single blow, and my family can bring down the magic tower with a single blow. Then, there were no more apostles who could endure. The constellations watching the fight hold their breath. The lone seeker of truth falls silent. The warhorse of the eternal plains falls silent. The incarnation of love and lust falls silent. In the midst of an artificially created hell, I stood proudly, looking down at the constellation that lay on the ground. Lastly, I am a descendant of the Sword Emperor. So, I ask you, with a grin, is it over now? I smiled. Then please write a surrender treaty. I'll give you my pen as a souvenir. How insolent! Musha bared his teeth. I will bring about the downfall of your very existence. The golden eyes of the constellation flared. The ox that harvests ruins requests an oath from the tower. Designate sanctuary. The golden eyes turned blood red. Approved. From this moment, this place belongs to the ox that harvests ruins. The sky turned red. He is the one who destroys and recreates, worship him. He is the one who destroys and recreates, worship him. The apostles thrown against the rocks, those groaning in pain on their knees, all chorused as if coughing up their last blood. He is the one who destroys and recreates, worship him. Once again. He is the one who destroys and recreates, worship him. The moment the apostles praised their God for the 3rd time, the ox that harvests ruins manifests its power. Crack. Bones throughout my body shattered. It was a familiar sensation. The pain of muscles and blood vessels breaking because they couldn't withstand the aura. I immediately reduced the flow of aura throughout my body, trying to adapt to this pain. But it was unnecessary. The aura, it's gone? The aura that frolicked in my veins had evaporated in an instant. Kim zombie. Strength drained from my body. You've aged now. What? Could have been asked. What do you mean, could have been retorted? Instead of spending time on questions and counter-questions, I took Bei Hurayong's words as the plain truth. I looked at my reflection on the blade. I opened my lips. Indeed. The voice that flowed from my mouth was clearly mine, yet it somehow sounded a bit worn. The sword was as clear as a mirror. So this is it. There was an old man reflected there. 3. The memories that flashed through my mind were like a broken tape that keeps playing on repeat. The ox that harvests ruins is Musha. The heretic questioner had said. He mainly oversees destruction and recreation. That memory stayed with me for a long time. Not because it was a memorable imprint, but rather because it remained as an unresolved mystery. Simple, yet powerful. Why destruction and recreation? Destruction was simple. Understandable. The sight of the lady of the golden silk swinging her hammer and striking down everything visible was the literal embodiment of a destroyer. But what about recreation? Simple, yet powerful. Which of the behaviors demonstrated by the lady of the golden silk fit the concept of recreation? Simple, but... And then I realized. Powerful. What in this world is both destruction and at the same time recreation? Isn't it? Regression. Or time itself. He mainly oversees destruction and recreation. Yes. The lady of the golden silk didn't need to explicitly show the fragments of recreation. The fact that Raviel escaped from a future where she became the empress, returned to the past, and where Sylvia captured the prince's heart while posing as a mere baron's daughter, was already a life recreated. Time constantly destroys and recreates itself. After a brief recollection and quick deduction, I spoke with a voice laden with the passage of time. Handling time. This is your power, isn't it, Musha? Truly living up to the name. The golden constellation murmured. Unlike before, where there was sarcasm, this time there was genuine admiration in the voice. The sword you wield is fierce, but not as sharp as your mind. There was a reason your followers and apostles are so loyal. Yes. Everything made sense. I lowered the tip of my sword and looked around. These are the ones who wished upon you. Not for wealth or health, but for a single desire. To return to the past. These are the humans whose wishes were fulfilled. Everyone gathered here is a returnee. Musha smiled. Indeed so. The constellation gripped the hammer tighter. In this universe, the most valuable thing akin to gold. The god who oversees time, fittingly, had golden hair that fluttered. I am the one who harvests from ruins. To those who wander among nothing but debris, I promise again the season of harvest. I am the god who brings about fruition. Heretic king. The heavens and earth tremble. I am the ruler of reincarnation and the keeper of the eons, Musha. The layers of sedimentary rock danced as if wagging their tails. Kneel. Lowly beings. The ox that harvests ruins manifests its power. Reincarnation through the eons. Your timeline will be altered. Your possibilities are fixed. Return to the ruins you came from. The world, it dies into a different landscape. If you had never met the Sword Saint. The history I walked through is shaken. If you had never met the Sword Emperor. Softly. The presence of Bei Hurayong, always snarking by my side, the appearance of the Sword Emperor, suddenly disappears. The fortunes that were granted to me, one by one, vanished. And were replaced by the possibilities of some unfortunate timeline. If you had never met the heretic questioner. If you had never met the venomous snake. If you had never met the count. If you had never met the crusader. If you had never met the black dragon witch. As if layers of sediment are being peeled away. My timeline is erased, line by line. If you had never met the goddess of protection. Softly. The holy sword in my hand disappears. So do the shadows that wandered and guarded around me. If you had never met the peony that bloomed in winter. The aura pulsating in my veins subsides into nothingness. If you had never met the flame emperor. Even the strength that coursed through my muscles vanishes without a trace. If you had simply aged and perished. If. Before long. The surrounding landscape has become desolate. If you were simply not the Death King. Ruins. Upon closer inspection, this place was the Harlem district of Babylon. Was it burned down in a fire? There were no proper buildings. As an old man, I settled in this ownerless place, pitching my tent among the decayed beams, and collecting dirty toothbrushes, tattered and yellowed paper cups, crumpled cigarette packets, and junk that couldn't even be considered antiques. Let me say it once more. But no matter how desolate the surroundings, I was not as desolate as myself. Hands that never held a sword. Feet that never climbed the tower. A heart that never got intoxicated with victory. Kneel before me. Cough. Before me, coughing weakly, stood the golden constellation, towering. Make a contract with me. Thus, return to the past before you dared to kill my child. Heretic king. Renounce your throne. Abandon your pride. Acknowledge that the power of time is supreme. Then, I shall forgive you. It's a pity. I coughed and lifted the corners of my mouth. What do you mean? Are you lamenting your own arrogance? No. Peep. Somewhere, a crying sound echoed. Your power. Musha turned around. Because the first time I won in my life. At the foot of the constellation. There lay a baby fox. The first thing I killed was time. The moment Musha's eyes widened. If you had never met your constellation. Sorry. The fox spoke. There's no such if. Tick. I chose to dream of Gongja's reality. The clock turned. A music box only for you manifests its power. Tick. Universal sovereign. The universe is vast, yet not so vast that music cannot fill it. I am small, but not so small that I cannot play your song. My universe plays only for you. A sandstorm blew. The ruins, the pillars of the ruins, the antiques, all traces of this life, until not even a trace remained, were swept away into the sands of the soil and the desert of time. Musha looked around in confusion. What? My power may be insignificant. Though it turned into a worthless relic by Gongjanim. At least, I can protect the reality that Gongjanim walks in. The fox smiled with its eyes. Scram, long head. This person's time belongs to me. Peep. I stroked the fox wrapped around my neck like a scarf. Beside me, Behurayim was still crossing his arms, and in my hand, the holy sword was still gripped, and my feet were still stepped on the 72nd floor. So it has come to this. My heart was still a heart that beats for victory. Now. With a grin. I still smiled as the me of now. Shall we finish this, Musha? Chapter 327, God and King, 3. 4. The time in hell stopped. This can't be. The artificially made Colosseum. Beneath layers of sedimentary rock, in the very center, Musha, the ox that harvests ruins, with her hair disheveled like a field of golden wheat, shouted. This can't be, no way. Musha took a step forward and her hammer swung in fury. It exploded. The ox that harvests ruins manifests its power. A music box only for you manifests its power. That explosion was blocked by Fox Nim. But, if you think about it, it wasn't that such a thing couldn't be. This can't be happening. But, again, if you think about it well, it indeed wasn't the case that it couldn't be. Fox Nim narrated in a theatrical tone. Musha gritted her teeth. I am the ox that harvests ruins. That is my alias, and my true name is the Eye of the Typhoon that whirls in the Sea of Governance. Even if countless moments pass in the universe, I am like the eye of a typhoon, an absolute temporal coordinate that does not sway with any flow. Absolute temporal coordinate? What's that? There's someone called Einstein in Gongja's world, can't you go argue with him? Stop doing this here. Death King. I know how insignificant you are. Musha glared at me with fierce eyes. As the power vanished, the vigor in Musha's eyes subsided, and Musha's eyes regained their golden hue. I know your past. From those eyes, the scent of a blazing sun was emitted. Little child. You were but a seedling with nothing. A shabby one-room. A cramped bed. Portraits of idols hung on the wall like laundry. Weren't you embellishing the void with idols that seemed to have something, because you had nothing? You were a ruin, truly a ruin, because you had never achieved anything. Death King, no, before you were given the name Death King, you were indeed lacking nothing to become my follower. You were the perfect human to wish for a return. Indeed. Musha, the constellation who governs time and regression, knows everything about what kind of human I was before I entered the 4,000 days of nirvana, my entire history. Well, of course. I accepted the opponent's omniscience. If Musha didn't know my past, then the what-if world that unfolded just before wouldn't exist. Musha cornered me by manifesting her power. She brought forth a version of me that had aged without gaining anything. In that process, various hypotheses were formed by the power. What if you hadn't met the Sword Saint? What if you hadn't met the Sword Emperor? What if you hadn't met the Flame Emperor? It's possible with the Sword Saint. Just knowing me, proposing the hypothesis, what if you hadn't met the Sword Saint, is feasible. But the Sword Emperor, especially the Flame Emperor. Unless you know my entire past, it's impossible to even hypothesize. Then, how was it possible? How does the ox that harvests ruins know about my regressed history? Hamustra was a constellation that dealt with stories. It read the story of me as a human and figured out my regression. But how about Musha? Because Musha himself is a god dealing with time and regression? While my mind rapidly touched upon guesses and sifted through deductions, Musha, still with an angry face, shouted. But what if your life, from the very beginning, was ruined by another regressor? It was a statement that inevitably shattered my thoughts. What? Don't play dumb. You must have thought about it. Musha spread her arms. Why am I so unlucky? The words I had thrown out. Why can't I acquire even one skill? The words that many people had thrown. Why can't I get even a bit of a fateful encounter, not even once a proper opportunity? I took a breath. I exhaled. If I say I never thought that way, it would be a lie. Yes, I did. Not just thoughts, but I also harbored a lot of resentment, and when the day was colored with resentment, the night was colored with alcohol. You've come this far with just one skill. Musha said. With astonishing willpower, undying spirit, and relentless passion, pouring sincerity into everything that you encountered, you finally arrived in front of me, Musha. Haven't you ever found it strange? That you, without any notable talent, have paved your way here, haven't you ever doubted it was too miraculous? That is. You would say it's, thanks to meeting good people. Musha smiled. That smile was as radiant as melted gold, and it lingered. But no. In that moment, I realized this was the final card she had prepared. Breaking the ground, creating an inescapable colosseum, attacking with 200 apostles, using her power to age me. And if I still hadn't been defeated by then? A last strike, as if saying, try enduring this too. I feel like I shouldn't listen to this. Bei Hurayong muttered. I'm not sure what secret she's about to reveal, but I have a bad feeling. When a constellation harbors poison, it always brings about some useless disaster. No, it's okay. I looked straight at Musha. I'll listen. I have delved into many people's secrets until now. I had seen them after I had taken responsibility, and even if I had taken responsibility, how could it not have been a form of violence? If it's a secret related to me, I want to hear it even more. My secrets cannot be the only sanctuaries. Thus, as a hunter who possesses Returner's clockwork watch, I boldly asked. What do you mean it's not? You could have originally succeeded. What does that mean? Not understanding, I asked again. I don't understand. Musha. What do you mean I could have originally succeeded? Foolish child. The reason you didn't have a fateful encounter on the first floor and didn't grab an opportunity on the second floor is not because there were no destinies or opportunities there. Musha's laughter grew louder. Like the laughter of an ancient king cursed to turn everything he touched into gold, the laughter unleashed by the golden constellation was grotesque and also desolate. You know about the tower. The tower up to the 10th floor is a refuge for those who have fled from their world, a comfortable island, a land of opportunities. How could there have been no destinies for you to encounter? Was the tower you looked up to such an indifferent being? Thump. The ox that harvests ruins manifests its power. In the Colosseum, surrounded only by sedimentary rocks, thud, thump. Pillars of a temple rose from the ground. They weren't intact pillars. The ruins of an abandoned temple. Eroded by wind and rain, like the teeth of an old man whose gums have partly receded, white pillars were embedded throughout hell. What if you hadn't met the Flame Emperor? Between the temple pillars, a scene faintly shimmered like a screen. The first manifested power was already a hypothesis I had heard. What if the Flame Emperor hadn't met the lady who walks the mirage? That was a completely new hypothesis I had heard. Above all, the subject wasn't me but the Flame Emperor. What if the Flame Emperor hadn't obtained Returner's clockwork watch? And what if the Flame Emperor hadn't regressed through Returner's clockwork watch? A world unfolded before my eyes. 4. The Flame Emperor, having obtained the Returner's clockwork watch, regresses and purchases a welfare lottery ticket. Through the gaps between the pillars, a scene where I and the Flame Emperor pass by each other was seen. Because of that, you arrive at the welfare lottery ticket seller one step later than in the original world, and the lottery ticket that was supposed to win the 4th prize turns into a dud. A minor misfortune. Beyond the pillars, I was seen sighing lightly and heading to the hunting grounds. Challenging with poor equipment, you suffer injuries that last a day longer than in the original world. And it didn't stop there. When you arrived after healing your wounds, the chest there was already empty. It wasn't taken by the Flame Emperor. Because to the Flame Emperor, who could regress at will, that chest was too trivial to care about. However, for me, who was poor and weak, the equipment in there would have been a significant help. You failed to acquire a skill card. Like a grain of sand jamming well-functioning gears, my life gradually changed due to the regressor named the Flame Emperor. Your efforts repeatedly end in failure. It would be appropriate to describe it as a downfall. Your life becomes what you know now. Until eventually reaching that small room. But, if the Flame Emperor had not regressed through the Returner's clockwork watch. What unfolded next was a world without that tiny dissonance. A completely different world. Your efforts are properly rewarded. A world with fruition. You acquire quite a good skill and reap the fruits of your efforts. There, I seem to have acquired the ability to communicate with all monsters. You gain recognition from people. Thanks to the skill, people of the tower finally discover that among the monsters roaming from the 2nd to the 9th floor, there are intelligent beings capable of conversation, and they had been avoiding humans, secretly building a vast civilization city underground. You pave the way. A fact completely unknown to us even now. On the 5th floor underground, the demi-humans had secretly built a city and were living in it. You prevent several tragedies. As the only one who could communicate with the demi-humans, as a representative of humanity. As a messenger. As a mediator. You make friends. After much trouble preventing incidents, the black dragon which lightly pats my shoulder and asks me with a smirk if I'd like to have a drink at a nice place she knows. You gain comrades. Although their martial skills are much inferior compared to mine now. Undoubtedly, a fulfilling life was laid out in the gaps between the pillars of the ruined temple, receiving recognition from those around me, living alongside the people I cherish. Young child, Musha said. This is your original form. This was the path you were originally supposed to walk, the destiny that was originally given to you. My heart raced. All of it, taken by that bastard the Flame Emperor. He hogged it all. He monopolized it. The destiny that was rightfully supposed to be yours brushed past in vain, and the opportunities that were meant to be yours slipped through your fingers. In that world, in the original world. In the original. In the mainstream, you had no reason to endure 4,000 times of suffering. You could have lived a satisfying life, diligently honing your inherently diligent nature. Is that so? Do you understand, young child? It wasn't that you were unlucky. Had I, too, been living a life distorted by...
Yo! So, ha!
You had your luck stolen by someone else. A thunderous roar echoed through the hell's cavern. I'll send you back. Musha. To the real life you were rightfully supposed to live. This is indeed a sharp poisonous hand. But the life you're living now is fake. A mere illusion. This time, I'll ensure no regressor interferes with your timeline, allowing you to fully walk through your time. I'll let you walk a real life. Abandon your constellation. And join my retinue. It's too late. What? The moment Musha retorted, my infernal heavens had already moved. Whoosh! The blade I drew sliced horizontally through hell. Where the aura passed, the pillars of the temple misaligned. They collapsed. Like slicing through a white radish, the temple pillars blossomed by Musha's power were too easily bisected. It's far too late. Now, you bastard. What? Fake life or real life? If you wanted to play word games, you should have come to me before I met Raviol, dazzled me before I met my master, persuaded me before I saw the smile of the Black Dragon Witch. I glared at the blazing gold and said. The Tower Master said I didn't live my best life. You say I didn't live my true life. I spoke towards the beyond. What makes a life fake or real isn't determined by the order of time. The ox that harvests ruins. If there are people influenced by me, people I've been influenced by, turning into love, friendship, and a hand that walks with me, that is precisely my true life. I held my sword expressionlessly. I am us. There are people who made me into us. And, we exist nowhere but in this world. Our true world is only here. The ox that harvests ruins. Self. Musha. Power, regression. I have heard all the music your constellation could produce. The first strategy. Breaking the ground to trap. Destroyed. The second strategy. Forcing into an inescapable artificial coliseum. Destroyed. The third strategy. Mobilizing 100 apostles for a combined attack. Destroyed. The fourth strategy. Using the power of the constellation to age the Death King. Destroyed. The fifth strategy. Showing the original time to tempt, to make one join her retinue. Destroyed. Aiming for at least 2 objectives at once, and thus, to defeat me, a successor to the Sword Emperor, with 5 strategies, the constellation now had nothing left but a hammer to block my path. First. I will take your pride. A single strike. Surely, Musha swung her hammer, likely attempting to counter my attack, but the result revealed in this world after a moment was tragic. Thud. Long horns. Among the things attached to both sides of Musha's forehead, the right horn, listlessly rolled away, caught in a sandstorm.
Ah.
And then, the ox that harvests ruins' existence becomes blurred. The radiant golden light dimmed a bit. Chapter 328, Starlight, 1. 1. It's a masterpiece. Ancient times. There was a temple where countless eons had repeated to the point where keeping track of time was meaningless, where even time itself had grown weary, and everything had come to a halt. In that place lived a beautiful dragon. Who might you be? To say it lived might not have been quite accurate. Its golden scales, once radiant, no longer sparkled. The golden eyes that once took one's breath away had long lost their focus. The voice. How long had it been since it had used its voice? The dragon felt strange about its own vocal cords. The resonance transmitted from its lungs through its throat felt unfamiliar, as did the flesh surrounding its lungs and the bones piercing through that flesh. Listening closely, even the beating of its heart sounded alien. The conclusion was clear. Who are you? I asked. The dragon found its own existence burdensome. Even if I answer, you won't understand. A name is merely an address for those living at the same coordinates to inquire about each other's well-being. I come from a different place than you. A different place? A place known as the main world. The human swept back her golden hair with the back of her hand. She's no ordinary human. The dragon's golden eyes narrowed. From the smallest gesture to the thinnest gaze, there wasn't a muscle this human did not control, no posture without meaning, and no voice without intent. A monster, indeed. And the dragon realized. Even though its scales had rusted and its heart had worn out, its instinct to assess those it faced was still very much alive. Realizing this fact made the dragon feel genuinely good for the first time in a long while. What do you call a masterpiece? This place. The temple where you reside. You are the dragon emperor who grants the wish of return. All humans who served you have returned without exception, and those who returned naturally found success. The good mood did not last long. Subsequently, those who did not serve you were treated as fools. You and I, and even those distant ones who cannot call you, and people on the opposite side of the world who cannot call me, all came to have faith in you. This is the result. The human looked around. A world where all humans have become returners. No, perhaps it's a world where all humans wish for a return. No one possesses the advantage of time. Because everyone sought to have time. No one was able to have time. This world had come to a stop. Like statues stuck in the temple of Medusa, humans did not move an inch, and the world, having no aging or wearing to do, simply stopped breathing in a paused moment. Except for one dragon. That's regrettable. Only the dragon remained alone in a world where everything else had stopped, becoming a unique god, an immovable mover, staying as a point of gold. You merely granted the wishes of humans. When the god overseeing regression rules the world, the ending is an inevitable stop. It's a joke only social butterflies would enjoy. So? Have you come to mock me, human? The dragon growled. If you want to fight, then say so. I will not refuse. Why would I? A landlord fighting a tenant only leads to gossip. Landlord, tenant? I am building a tower. The human clasped her hands together. It would be nice if you could come there. Of course, you would have to take on several restrictions. Musha. If a god must live somewhere, don't you think that even gods should be given at least 2 chances? The sound of a clock's hands moving could be heard. The ox that harvests ruins thought so. 2. The existence of the ox that harvests ruins becomes faint. Musha's horn was cut off. Oh God. Lord Musha.
Ah.
I will kill you. The apostles of the constellation screamed. They were horrified. Their rage was not far behind. Despite surely not having forgotten the pain they had suffered at my hands, as if they had, they gripped their hammers tighter and charged again. Bravely. But the flames would likely have no interest in the courage of the moths diving into them. You have no right to talk to me about the original life, Musha. I swung my sword without taking my eyes off Musha.
Ah!
An apostle, whose clavicle was diagonally cut by my sword, screamed and fell away, suffering the same pain. Many more apostles charged after him, hence, the screams never ceased. Probably the returner's clockwork watch I possess is also a skill you created. It has strict conditions, but it does contain the power of regression. Hic.
Ah!
Cough.
Ugh.
In other words, you are the root cause of the disaster. The disaster became successful thanks to Returner's clockwork watch, and if I have led an unfortunate life in the shadow of that success, then you are ultimately the final cause. How dare you act arrogant, claiming you'll fix the life you've ruined? It doesn't make sense.
Ah!
Of course, I will not beg you to give me back my life. I have no intention of returning. But, how many people have there been, twisted by your power? Thud. I walked on, making the hell scream. Breaking through the defense created by the apostles, crossing walls of people and rivers of humanity, I approached Musha. I have the right to punish you. Are you prepared to live as a human, golden constellation? A voice leaked from between Musha's teeth. I did nothing wrong. It was a precarious sound, like the wind blowing between ancient canyons. There was a child who came in front of my palace and knelt down. He was clear-eyed and innocent. His mother was killed by a carriage, and he found it unbearably unjust. Screams echoed. He had no thought of blaming the noble in the carriage, no thought of revenge, but just wanted to have told his mother, as she left the house that day, to be careful on the road. That it's easy to slip on wet roads. To walk carefully. To come back safely. Just that one thing. Screams echoed. To let him say that, so. That heart was so pure. Screams echoed. What wrong have I done? The master of all ruins cried. I just knew how to do a bit more than you all. It was so from the moment I was born, and it became more so as I grew. That's all there was to it. I did what I could do. Was my birth a mistake? Was my life wrong? Why, you, by what right? Dare to judge me. You could have spoken first. I did not stop my steps. Despite the screams of the apostles, countless obstructions, attacks, and even facing the blazing eyes of the constellation, I kept walking. What? I have no complaints about granting the wish of the lady of the golden silk. Sylvia wished, and you responded. That's all there was to it. Thud. Because of that, Raviol's life was ruined, but still, there are no complaints. Thanks to that, I was able to meet Raviol. All of this was done by me as an representative of the pond of accumulating memories, the corner librarian, Hamustra. Thud. You appointed the lady of the golden silk as an representative. I became Hamustra's representative and defeated the lady of the golden silk. That's the truth of the matter. Divinity clashed with divinity, a fair duel was fought, and the outcome was decided. Thud. Why do you object to that? To be precise, why do you hold a grudge against me? If there was something unfair during the duel, you could have just spoken to Hamustra then. Why? Why did you silently accept defeat at that time, and now, you are asking me, who was merely an representative, for a rematch? No. It's not even a duel. You ambushed me on your own accord. Yes. It's not ordinary for a constellation to attack a hunter. Unless a hunter provokes a constellation, it's extremely rare for a constellation of Musha's level to personally pick a fight with a hunter. It's not because the constellations are noble characters. The Tower Master must have set restrictions. Consideration for hunters. Prohibition of massacres. Actions only permitted if they fit with the stage gimmicks, etc. Even Musha herself had exclaimed not long before. Was the tower you looked up to such an indifferent being? There must be restrictions unknown to me that apply to the constellations. This tower carefully manages the difficulty level, setting floors 1 to 10 as the tutorial area and floors 11 to 49 as the beginner area. It seems, in a way, even more disadvantageous to the constellations than to the hunters. I will ask. Musha. The reason why Musha could attack me in this tower. Using the Lady of the Golden Silk case, an already concluded past, as a pretext for a proxy war between Hamustra and Musha, and going to lengths to challenge me to a duel. I quietly voiced my speculation. Have I become a constellation? Silence enveloped us. It was an artificial silence created because all 200 apostles had finally fallen under my sword, leaving no apostle left to scream. It was not because my speculation hit the mark, causing everyone in the Colosseum hell to fall silent. Yet, the timing was so perfect that it seemed as if the entire 62nd floor stage fell silent in response to my question. If I'm not an ordinary hunter but have ascended to a constellation, then your actions all make sense. No one answered, so I continued. While attacking an ordinary hunter as a constellation is prohibited, a duel between constellations would be much more lenient. Because they are equals. Because they are peers. The tower wouldn't be so strict in such cases. When did it start? At precisely what moment did I gain a status equivalent to that of a constellation? Perhaps right after clearing the 61st floor? Something strange happened when I entered this stage. I hadn't paid much attention to it at the time, but looking back, it was suspicious. The constellations had collectively declared war on me, or more precisely, on my forces. The eye living in the labyrinth swears to kill you. The incarnation of love and lust swears to tear you apart. The warhorse of the eternal plains prepares for war. The ox that harvests ruins swears your annihilation. Of course, Fox Nim had provoked the constellations. But merely because of provocation, with the constellations, who had been eyeing me as a potential ally and watched in real time the madness I unleashed on the 50th floor, suddenly turn their backs on me? Thinking it was just a joke message makes it simple. However, having exchanged blows with Musha, my suspicions deepened. For some specific reason, the constellations no longer felt any reservation about attacking me. For instance, if I, Kim Gongja, am no longer a novice and perhaps not even an ordinary hunter anymore. For instance, Bei Hurayong, who had no intention or will to become a constellation, somehow held the title of Sword Constellation. For instance, becoming a constellation happens naturally at some point, regardless of one's will. Sword Emperor Nim. Yes? How do constellations send those messages? Bei Hurayong chuckled. I haven't tried it myself, so I don't know. But just thinking about broadcasting a message, wouldn't it happen automatically? Your sword isn't in human form, yet it freely uses messages. I doubt there's a complicated system involved. That makes sense. I nodded. Let's try it. I closed my eyes. In my mind, I thought of someone I could recall without a hint of blurriness until the moment of my death. How are you doing? Suddenly, an image formed in my mind. There was about a cup's worth of water in front of me. Or perhaps it wasn't water but white powder. Something in that cup diminished by exactly 1 spoonful. Then, the sky that gathers screams sends greetings to the Lady of the Silver Lily. I opened my eyes. Yep. As expected. Musha was glaring at me, her teeth clenched. I gave her a bright smile. So it works. Chapter 329, Starlight 2. 3. From the depths of the Colosseum, now shrouded in silence, I hummed leisurely. You kept calling me young child, human, emphasizing it as if to mark a distinction. It turned out to be poison for you. You are a constellation, and I am merely a human. It seems you were unconsciously trying to plant that perception. But, I'm a man with too little oil to be fried with mere wordplay. A man with too little oil to be fried equals basically means someone who is not easy to fool. You. A terrifying sound echoed from Musha's teeth. What difference does it make for someone like you to take the end of a constellation? Without even having a power, how dare you? A lot has changed. That wasn't my voice. Sorry, but I have to keep the contract. It wasn't the voice of any of the 200 apostles lying in the Colosseum, nor was it Behu or Fox's. And, of course, it wasn't Musha's either. I furrowed my brows. I've heard it somewhere. I couldn't immediately recall. On the other hand, Musha seemed to instantly know who the owner of the voice was. Magician. Looking up at the sky, the golden constellation ground its teeth. It's not over yet. The time for the preemptive strike I requested, it's still valid. The validity was not determined by time. You know, I know, and all the high-ranking people of the tower know, so SSI, if you start playing with time, there's no end to it. Above. Looking up from the underground, the sky seemed circularly cut open. In the middle of that, a person wearing loose-fitting clothes floated, looking down at us. Your surprise attack is recognized only as long as the Death King is unaware of his ascension. Now that he is aware of becoming a constellation, there's no more advantage for you to enjoy. The owner of the voice was holding an abnormally long, thin staff. Held lightly with the middle, ring, and little fingers. A magician, perhaps? The staff seemed fragile enough to break with a mere flick, but the magician skillfully stirred it. The 6th pillar. The Wand of Ages manifests. After hearing the message, I realized where I had heard that voice. The same existence as the lady who walks the mirage. The ones who manage this tower and convene meetings to discuss issues when problems arise. One of the 6 subordinates of the Tower Master. A pillar. The magician slightly turned his head to meet my gaze. It's been a while, trickster. Trickster? Are you talking about me? From the beginnings, you've been convening us with your tricky schemes. Trickster, because you are cunning. I insult you, and it feels good, and you, surprisingly, might feel good being insulted in such a cute pronunciation? It's a win-win, mutually beneficial communication. What? No. I don't think I have such tastes. There's quite a lot I have to discuss with you. The staff muttered. With a voice as loose as a pencil without lead. Without any hostility or malice, merely indifferent as time itself or as bland as water, the staff spoke. But before that, let me do what I must. The staff lightly touched the void. Crack, crack, crack. It was then the sky cracked like a glass pane. No! Musha screamed. I cannot accept this. I object to the contract. Call a meeting. Open a discussion. I, the ox that harvests ruins, request to immediately raise an agenda for discussion on this matter. dash dot. Rejected. Crack crack crack. Already, we've allowed too many disadvantages to a child who has just ascended. Musha. Hishmith crits. Because of your requests. The sky, once dyed red, shattered loudly. The void fragmented into billions of pieces, scattering everywhere. Just as the wind blew, swirling the red fragments, it seemed as if the sky was bleeding. The power of the ox that harvests ruins is suspended. The time chains that were forcibly fixing your growth are released. Once more, the sky shed its skin. The power of the I living in the labyrinth is suspended. The information distortion that was blocking some messages to you is released. The peeled sky was a black infinity. Without the sun, the crescent moon, or the Milky Way, only the pitch-black darkness opened its maw there. In the dark heavens, a serpent covered in blue scales was hiding. Damn it! SSSHHH. Like waves on the night sea, the dark blue scales rippled. The snake was huge enough to occupy a corner of the sky, and in a sky without the Milky Way, it alone was enough to unfold a sea. I knew this would happen. The serpent's eyes were triangular. Unlike humans, who have white sclera with pupils, the giant snake shone with bright blue pupils on black sclera. I thought there was a chance if I struck before you were fully awakened as a constellation. It was my mistake to fall for the words of that bull-headed brat. This is getting interesting. It's Hishmith crits. Behurayong twisted his lips and crossed his arms. Your alias is the I living in the labyrinth. A constellation that governs information distortion, manipulation, exposure, puzzles, contradictions, mazes, and secrets. You pretended to be interested in this zombie, but it was all fake, huh? Aha. Only then did I realize the truth behind this battle. So, two constellations conspired to attack me? Before I became stronger than I am now. You seized the opportunity when I hadn't yet awakened to the powers and authority of a constellation, to break me in one fell swoop. In the pitch-black night without moonlight, feeling regretful, I drew a crescent moon with my lips. One controls time. The other controls information. Thanks to the two of you working together, I couldn't even hear the message that I had become a constellation. A perfect combination. GRK. The serpent with inverted eyes bared its fangs. Its eyes turned upside down, pouring out a terrifying glare, sharply observing Musha. It was your arrogant assurance that led to this mess, so deal with it yourself. What? I know nothing about it. Bluish flames wrapped around the snake's body. The eye living in the labyrinth flees to its own world. Literally, it coiled its tail and ran away. You, foolish thing. Left alone underground, Musha spat blood from his mouth and shouted. If I am subdued, the next target will be you. It's your turn. Whether we become friends or foes, we should have settled it here. Do you think running away will let you live even 6 more days? Do you think you'll enjoy your power even a day longer? You, an idiot who won't be any better off dead. Well, I'll just take a day off and then go up. Musha was at a loss for words. I smiled brightly. If a day seems too harsh, how about I take a full week off? After all, you two formed an alliance just to catch me. It would be bad if you fell out over this. I'll consider your feelings and not make you feel neglected. Whatever the reason you two banded together to attack me might be, I'll find out eventually. I'll find out later. Even if you don't tell me, capturing the eye living in the labyrinth and dealing with it will suffice. That was what I meant, and it seemed Musha understood it as such. The hammers in his hands hesitated. Surrender. I won't say that I'll accept your surrender without any punishment. I will claim what needs to be claimed. However, I promise not to double the weight of the punishment out of spite for ambushing me while blocking my sight and hearing. Hesitation flickered in Musha's eyes. Musha, who had prepared 5 or 6 strategies just to capture me, now truly had no cards left to play. With the eye living in the labyrinth, abandoning her and fleeing, Musha had few choices left. My suggestion of surrender had narrowed those few choices down to one. What do you want? Hand over the identity of Sylvia Evenale, the Lady of the Golden Silk, to me completely. I started with the most obvious condition. Never claim ownership over Sylvia again. Do not contest the fact that Sylvia belongs to my family. Musha's lips quivered. Yes, no, neither answer came out. We both knew this was just the first request. And? You must also assist in capturing the eye living in the labyrinth. Where does that constellation reside? How can we break through easily? Release all the information you have. Still, Musha's lips did not utter either affirmation or denial. Because the second demand was too easy. Hishmith Kritz had betrayed Musha first. Is there anything easier in the world than betraying someone who has betrayed you? Precisely because it was such an easy request, Musha must have guessed that there were still heavier conditions to come. Is there more? Kneel. In front of the apostles, make it clear that I am stronger than you, that I have defeated you, that you have surrendered to me. Drip. Blood flowed from Musha's mouth. It wasn't from biting his lips. His teeth had crushed against each other so powerfully, so intensely, that the gums could not bear it, causing wounds to open between the canines and molars. Constellations like you have aesthetics. I continued speaking. Or laws. A kind of self-discipline. The excuses like I may be kneeling with my body, but my heart remains steadfast, that ordinary humans might use don't work here. It's similar to pride but also different. A constellation is an entity made of power. Perhaps power is the very reason for a constellation's existence. Like the core for humans. For me, who possesses a regression skill, Musha, the constellation of regression, kneeling is like a general admitting defeat to another general, a musician conceding to another musician, acknowledging my superiority within the same realm. Could Bei Hu Ryong ever kneel to another swordsman? After kneeling, could Bei Hu Ryong still claim to be the supreme swordsman of all ages? The condition I imposed on Musha was laden with the weight of gold. If you do not accept. And it also carried the precise weight of a life. I will take the remaining horn you have left. I'll give you 3 minutes. 3 minutes passed. A silence like death stagnated at the bottom of hell. About 160 seconds in, the only sound that rang out made the silence even more ghastly. The ox that harvests ruins activates its power. A music box only for you activates its power. I knew what Musha had attempted. He tried to stop time. Musha couldn't gather his thoughts within 180 seconds. He lacked time. He needed the leisure to ponder. He tried to forcibly extend the unpermitted time, and it was thwarted by Fox Nim. And so. Musha. An unresolved heart leaked out of Musha's hands. The ox that harvests ruins. Kwong. A crack formed where Musha kneeled, and holes were dug in the ground following the pattern of his 5 fingers. To the Death King. Blood dropped. The blood that flowed from his mouth, down his jawline, and dripped, seeped into the holes dug by Musha's fingers. To the sky that gathers screams, I surrender. I nodded. Yes. I looked down at the constellation pressing its forehead to the ground. Then I will ask. Musha. Why did you conspire with Hishmith Kritz to attack me? There was a moment of silence. As the fingers dug deeper holes and more blood flowed into them, making the ground redder, Musha opened his mouth. You have a connection with us. We met for the first time today. However, from your beginning, it can be said that we have been entangled. I tilted my head. Why is that? The returner's clockwork watch. Musha answered. With words I hadn't anticipated at all. The very skill of regression you possess was created by none other than me and Hishmith Crits.